It's 1 o'clock and it's Thursday and we are coming to you live from the SmartHub. Good afternoon, and you'll recognize my guest on the couch with me today. Hello, Daniel Johnsen. How are you?
Hello, Elize. I'm doing great.
Excellent. Isn't the weather becoming quite warm here in Rocky?
It's not warm yet.
Oh,
not warm yet.
It's definitely warmer than it was over the weekend, that's for sure. Hey, we are going to talk about something quite exciting today, but before we get onto the topic, it's week 1 of Turbo Traction Lab 2.
It is week 1, day 4, midday through day 4, which is pretty exciting. So the crew's upstairs working away. We're teaching them little tools, tips, tricks, and things to understand their business first of all, and then start looking at some international markets. So they're doing great.
Oh, that's so awesome. I'm so excited to see all the fresh faces in the room. And we have some really, really great ideas. And next week, of course, we'll have the whole cohort here. In Lab 2, we have people traveling all across the nation, up from Victoria, up from Sydney, and beyond. Do we have anyone from Perth? I don't think so. I think Melbourne and Sydney.
No, but there was a funny Facebook comment whenever we were trying to get applicants. And so I can't remember if I shared it in a Perth startups group, and some of the feedback was, I can't believe Rockhampton is doing this. Why can't Perth do this?
No way.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool.
That is awesome. Yeah, so we're Lab 2 kicked off and it's going sensationally. Right, but today we are back on our HubLive. I always do that. HubLive, talking about this. Now you'll remember that last week we had Leanne on the couch, our chief entrepreneur, and she looked at this diagram and said, my brain works a little bit different to this. She likes concentric circles. It's really interesting. You can take this diagram and you can change it into circles too, and I might even do that in some upcoming HubLives, talk about value creation and marketing and sales and value delivery and finance, and how you can turn this linear process into a circular process, and how systems and people then feed into that. We can look at that and talk about that in upcoming months. But first we have to get through all of what we've been talking about here, and we are still back to the team element. And so I'm very, very excited to be back on the couch with Daniel, because we're going to talk about who do you need on your extended team. Now, you mentioned before there are 5 or 6 key relationships that every single business owner needs to forge. You need to find these people, you need to interview these people, and then you have to have a very strong relationship based in trust with these people, right? Who are they?
So from a very high level, it is you need to have a lawyer or a solicitor.
Yep.
You need to have a trusted banker. You need to have an insurance broker. You need to have your accountant, and then you need to have your tech person. And then depending on the skill sets of your internal team, you may have some outsider marketing help. So that could be an ad hoc service, or it could be somebody on your team. But that one's sort of that one's sort of usually on a team. But yeah, so those 5, your tech, your insurance broker, your accountant, your lawyer, and your banker. And if you have those 5 relationships set in play, and you can call them up and get one call, that's all, that usually helps you building your business and solving some complex problems, but it also helps you save money, because a little bit of time spent with working with the accountant, the insurance agent, and the lawyer can actually save you a lot of money in case something will happen. It's just, when will it happen to your business, and did you get that taken care of before it actually happened?
Absolutely, absolutely. So essentially, they are all part of your team, even though you wouldn't necessarily employ them directly, but you need to see them as part of your support team. So the question is, how do you find good people, because we all know that we want the best people on our team. When you're surrounded by the best people, when you have the best people working with you, everything becomes easier. And I know that these 5 people are really designed to not only keep you out of trouble, but also prepare for when things do go wrong, but also help you operate in a very specific and easy way, operate your day-to-day business. So talk to us about, how do we go about selecting some of these people?
So it's like a relationship, someone you'll date. It could be somebody that's coming to work on your house or clean your house. You just don't find a random person in the phone book or on Facebook and say, hey, let me entrust the future of my business, my wealth creation to you without ever interviewing. I have no idea why anybody would just blindly trust anybody. So just like you would take the effort to find someone to date, just like you would take the effort to find a co-founder, you should take the same care to find a lawyer. And sometimes what happens is if there's somebody will use their family, friends, real estate lawyer to say, hey, I've got this high-tech business with global aspirations. Well, you're a lawyer because you went to CHU, which is a great university. Can you do this? And there are actually two different types. There's multiple types of lawyers. You wouldn't hire a property lawyer to take care of a medical malpractice issue. You would go to a specialist. So as you're thinking about who do you engage, you can, one, ask around. You can come to a trusted resource like a mentor. You can come to somebody that started a business for and be like, hey, who set up your company? Who's your solicitor that you use? And they'll give you a referral. But just because you have the referral doesn't mean like, hey, let's do $2,000 worth of drafting documents. Ask them the experience that they've had. Ask them for an experience that something didn't turn out like they thought it would, so they had to help clean up, and they should have a lot of war stories. But make sure that they're in the space that you're operating with. They've dealt something with the startup, because if they forget some clauses, say in the operating agreement or the shareholders between two founders, it's actually pretty expensive to add that in later, and it just creates more problems. And that happens down in Brisbane and Sydney, that somebody want to engage a first-year new lawyer, which is, I'm sure they're great and smart, but they just haven't earned the stripes just yet. Same thing for a banker. You want to have somebody that if a transaction goes wrong, or if this happens probably more frequently than what it should, someone somehow gets a fraudulent activity on the account, and you've got to say, hey, what do I do? You just shouldn't have to call up the 1-300 number. Did y'all say that 1-300 number?
Yeah.
The 1-300 number, you should be able to call up and say, hey, John, had this happen, what's our next step? So you have to interview them, see what's best for you, but at the end of the day, it's who do you want to work with? But everybody, just don't go with the family friend, because that may not always be the best one.
So I want to just touch on the lawyer situation. Yep. I agree with everything you've said. I think it's so important to look at and have conversations with more than one, whatever, lawyer, banker, and really find someone that you can trust and work with. But just in terms of the kind of business that you're trying to set up and the transactions and contracts or whatever it is that you're trying to deal with, you need to really understand that there are lawyers with different skill sets. And I think that's what you alluded to, or well, you spoke about just before. Now, in the startup space, so just to remind you, there are all these different kinds of businesses: micro business, small business, medium enterprises, and corporate businesses. And then there's this other kind of business called a startup. It's not an early stage company. It's called a startup because it's a high growth company. The company might be 10 years old. It's still called a startup, high growth into an international market. So that's very specialized, and you want to check, if you're running a startup, that the lawyers that you're dealing with are familiar with that space. And we can certainly point you in the right direction if you're running a startup. If you have a small, medium, micro, small, medium, or corporate enterprise, of course, you can work with other lawyers who might not have startup experience. But so the bottom line is, find a lawyer or a solicitor that actually is experienced in what it is that you need them to do. And I think that goes for anyone that you employ. And the second part is, when you have people on your team, it's, as the leader of the business, it's your job to communicate clearly what it is that you're trying to achieve. And I think that's important regardless of your employing, or whether you're employing people directly in your team, or whether you're contracting with them and forging long-term relationships like with your lawyer or your banker or your insurance broker. So be clear on what it is that you want to do. Why are you in business? I ask this to people all the time, business owners. Why are you in business? And then after a long conversation, we usually get to, because I'm trying to build the wealth of my family. But very few people can actually just say, I'm in business to ultimately build the wealth of my family, and then also deliver some value to the world and build value in the business. and also obviously ensure that my team is looked after, etc., etc. And if you're able to think about those things and communicate that clearly to all of your team, your banker, your insurance agent, they'll be able to help you achieve your goals. But if you can't articulate your goals, then of course they won't be able to assist you to go get in the exact right path to get to where you want to be. So tell us about employing a tech person. So everyone now needs a tech person. We're all in a technology business to some extent.
Yep. So most people think that these tech people out there, that you have to hire somebody and pay them $250,000 a year, something like that. That's not always the case. Sometimes if you do have a trusted tech partner, that they can take something, an existing piece of software, mold it, manipulate it for a little bit, they can charge you $10,000. There's one mob down in, I think they're in Sydney, that they use a marketplace generation. So you could use a platform that's based in Europe, and you could create your own marketplace to swap tires, cars, houses. Like you could make your own Airbnb clone on this platform. But instead of you having to pay somebody hundreds of thousands of dollars to build it from scratch, you use this company in Europe, but you can have a trusted tech partner that's all they do, and they're in Sydney, and for $10,000 you have a marketplace.
Wow.
But which years ago that was $1 million build out, but each year it gets cheaper. Same thing for if you've got a trusted person that does, like if your computer gets fried or something like that, and your password management, installing of software, making your sure up to date. So there's a continuum of what are these people going to help me do? Is it going to build something out, or it's going to just do some little quick things on my phone or whatever?
So can I talk about that for a second? So I think it's important to make the distinction between what we mean when we say tech people. So there are developers who are people who write code. And can you talk to us a little bit about software engineers, developers, what they do? And then there are our hardware people and our on-sellers of, say, Microsoft 365, people who look after our servers and our computers and ensure that our Word runs well and that our licensing is up to date. Just talk to us about the difference between these different technical specialities and what we should be looking out for when we employ some of this help.
Yeah, so that is a big can of worms to uncover, and that's probably like 7 of these series. But as you're looking to engage somebody that you need them to create something from nothing, that's more on the custom development. So you've got a continuum of custom development, never been done before. I need this app, I need this website, I need this service. No one in the world's doing it, or so you think. And then it's their job to help you research, figure out how that should work, and then they build it from scratch.
Or even you could have tried a couple of off-the-shelf solutions, and it just doesn't fit what you want. So you'd want to design something that works just for your company. That's starting from scratch.
Yeah, that's starting from scratch, doing something where you literally have to create the login screen, which that's on every single website. That's not, but they'll create it from scratch. Whereas the gentleman I was talking about that has a mob down in Sydney, he takes an existing product, but he makes it work for your use case, and he knows how it is. So he's still a developer, but he's not doing everything from scratch. He's using existing tools and methods out there and previous things that he's done before that says, oh, the last time I did this, I added this password reset feature or something like that. And then you've got, so these people that are creating something from nothing or using different systems and bring them together, or they could even integrate, which is a pretty cool one to do. So if you have a CRM and you want to say, hey, every time that I add a new CRM contact, it also sends a welcome email, and it creates a Google Drive folder, and it does these 15 other things, and it sends them a physical postcard. All that can be automated, but that's more of an integration specialist than it is a hardcore developer, because you don't need them creating from scratch. You just need to say, when this happens, kick off these other processes. So you've got those two different types of people, and there's tons of jobs, and they're really smart, brilliant people. And then on the other spectrum, you've got the day-to-day, hey, my laptop, hey, my phone, Windows pushed an update, it's not operating correctly, what I do, my printers. You wouldn't go to your code stuff from scratch people and say my printer's not working because it's not worth their time. You want them to help you create that value and that wealth from the custom creation of what you're doing. But you also need to have somebody that you can turn to say, hey, the printer's not working, or hey, the printer died, I need to buy one. What's your trusted recommendation? Different skill sets. Usually the really techie people, they can go in between some of the roles, but they can't go very deep in all the roles. So and there's gifted people on both sides of them.
So we have essentially like all of these different spectrums of businesses and the tech inside in the hub as members. On the side of developing something from scratch, we have Bitplex with Phil Martin and his company. He's a software engineer and they have developers, a team of 6 or so, and they can build anything for you. And then on the other side, we have Matthew Lawson and ABG, Allied Business Group, and he will set up all of your servers and your computers and ensure that all your licenses are paid and your backups are being done regularly, and look at the networking and the infrastructure. And then we also have a company called Digital Dexterity, which looks at the strategy behind tech. So, looking at how your business operates, everything from strategy all the way through to your day-to-day operations, and then looking for opportunities where you can integrate technology for efficiency or productivity. So we have a number of different technology providers as members in the hub, and if you would like a recommendation for someone or you'd like an introduction, please reach out to us just on Facebook, and we'll definitely be able to put you in touch. So insurance is a big one. Insurance is the thing that you get to prepare for the events that you can't prepare for yourself, right? So how do we go about finding the correct insurance broker?
Yeah, so that one's an interesting one, and it all comes down to if you can clearly articulate what your business will do, the potential exposures of what will happen, you should be able to call up a business insurance broker and say, hey, this is what it is. You fill out some information, and then they will take your application, shop it around, and show you a couple different things. It's up to you as the business to decide, hey, do you need accidental glass coverage? But if you're pure digital online business, no one's going to break into your window, but they'll offer it because they're probably legally required to do that. So you've got to think, all right, really what am I preparing for? If you're newly starting out, you're probably not going to get business interruption insurance that says, hey, I was just now hit by some encryption key, and this happens way too frequently now where someone is taking advantage of your system, they've encrypted everything. Well, there's insurance to make sure that you can recover from that, and they'll pay for the lost time, they'll pay for someone to come in and clean up that little hostage situation that you have. So it really depends on what type of business that you have.
Can I link to that, just to interrupt you really quickly? When we were at the security talk the Chamber held a couple of weeks ago, they made a really important point, and I think they said ensure that you get your business insurance and your business interruption insurance from the same insurer, because if you don't, if there is an event, what happens is they just keep arguing with each other about who should pay, who's liable, and you don't ever actually get a payment. So ensure that you use the same insurer for those two insurances to ensure that there's no argument from who's actually responsible for looking at that claim.
Yeah, and that'll happen all the time. The insurance's goal is for a valid claim to go ahead and pay out, because that's what you're paying the premium for, and they share that risk amongst everybody, which is totally okay. But they also need to protect their own assets and the money that they have. So if they can figure out a way to delay that claim, which unfortunately as the business owner has a negative impact on your cash flow and getting your business back, unfortunately that does happen where they war between each other. But they're doing what's in their business interest, which may inadvertently be in your not business interest. So insurance, you've got to think at least what happens in the U.S., but I think you can have private health cover here. That you may be able to find one broker that can do everything for you, and you may make one premium and it covers everything, but that's up to you. So another thing that's often overlooked, especially with founders that have their own vehicle and they use that vehicle for business purposes, is you have to make sure that you have a business rider insurance on that, because if your insurance, it probably has a clause on it for your third-party compulsory that says, hey, if you use this for business generation and an accident happens, well, we're off the hook because you didn't disclose that. So let's say you're making deliveries or something like that and you didn't disclose your Corolla is doing that, well, now you're going to they're going to deny your claim potentially.
Yeah. So I think a couple of really important issues is, number one, be cognitive of the threats, like what could go wrong. Make a list, and then talk to an insurance broker, and they'll give you an even more comprehensive list. Only insure for the things that you couldn't cover, and then be open and honest. Like, be super honest, because if you're not super honest in the front end, you might be paying the premium and sleeping safely and soundly every night, and then when you do want to make a claim, then you find out that, oh, you can't claim on this, or they're denying your claim because you didn't disclose all the information in the front end. So ensure that you are super open and honest about exactly how things operate.
And document everything. So let's say that your home office goes up in flames, or wherever you are renting a space in an office here in Rockhampton, somebody's broken into it, you don't have the serial numbers, the purchase receipts or anything like that, and you're going to be like, hey, I had 7 $3,000 MacBooks, and they're going to say, well, we need proof of that. If you have like that were lost in the fire, and they're going to be like denied. So what a lot of people will do is monthly, and this is set up a reminder on your phone, is you'll just go around and take a picture of your office. So somebody says, hey, I need to know what printer you had, and you need to say, well, I had this multifunction one. If you just list a printer whenever they come, they're going to be like, here's a $60 printer. But if it's like multifunction, multi-page, and all this other stuff, well, now that's a $700 one. So document, and be honest and open with your insurance person.
Absolutely. Okay, so the final person that we haven't discussed and described yet is your accountant.
Yeah.
How do we go about, I think the accountants are in Australia, our small business owners, trusted advisor. How do we go about building great relationships with our accountants? I know I got my accountant on recommendation when we first arrived in Australia, and I interviewed her, and I interviewed a couple of others, and my accountant and I get along really well, and we have a very close relationship, and I've been working with her as part of my team for the last 11 years. So it's a great relationship if it works well. How do we go about getting the right accountant?
So one, you have to understand what an accountant does. And an accountant is not just somebody that puts in your invoices, receivables, and payable, and then they walk away. You can use a lot of these relationships that we've been discussing, especially the tech and the accountant, as strategic advisors. So you can spend some money on your tech and some integrations that are actually giving you a competitive advantage. The accountant can do that too if you fully disclose what you're doing and they have experience with it. So one of the things that an accountant should be able to advise you on is you're like, hey, I'm going to spend the next 6 months building out this system for my high growth startup. How does that impact my tax liability? And that's a very advanced question to ask, and usually you won't. But they may say, hey, you need to spend up to this amount of money, and by the way, you can get a tax credit back for that through the research and development tax credits that are out there. Now, if you go to someone like Monty and Chris, who are great supporters here at the SmartHub,
yeah.
You could,
Evans and Edwards and Chris Harris.
Yeah. They're great supporters of the community here. They see a lot of this, and they see, hey, you should be able to do this. Hey, buy this. Hey, have you thought about leasing that? And so they help you really make your accounting and purchases and decisions like that, where it helps you out in the growth of your business. But what unfortunately happens is somebody will hire a bookkeeper and an accountant that's based in India for a flat fee a month, and you don't know what they're doing, and they don't document some of the items that you've done, and then you'll lose out on these tax credits. I know somebody that lost out on an $180,000 tax credit, and they literally went to their new accountant that they had found through some random connection. They didn't vet the person, had never dealt with a startup and research and development tax credits, and they missed the deadline to file for the tax credit. And so that $180,000 that could have been doled out over a couple years, they just lost, and there's no recourse. If it were me, I would have then went to my lawyer and said, hey, how can I get this $180,000? Because I think that's malpractice, but that's a different story. So you got to make sure that you're not just using your hairdresser's best friend that does something. Oh yeah, I do this on the side as some side money. No, if you're really running a business, make sure you can take care of everything. It's really, some people will treat, oh well, I'll pay the ATO whenever it's appropriate. No, you got to do that because as investors, sometimes whenever we look at that and we're like, congratulations, you've not filed your tax return for 3 years. If you can't do that simple form, I don't trust you with my money, and I've actually pulled out of deals because of that. And once you pull the onion back, so accountants and your tech people, especially your accountants, can help you both in the short term and the long run. But you've got to keep them engaged. You've got to tell them what your plans are. And there's this other amazing thing that happens with anybody that we've talked to. If you keep that relationship, other than the, hey, when is my premium due calls, maybe you have an extra ticket to an event or a luncheon or something like that, call them up. They're always trying to network. But if you start building a relationship, they do this interesting thing where the second on your little diagram that you have, which is the sales and the marketing, whenever somebody says, hey, do you know somebody that does this? And they say that to the accountant or the banker or the insurance agent or the lawyer, they're like, hey, you know who you need to talk to for this? And they actually shift business towards you because you've built a relationship. And so they're a paid extension of your team, but that works out in multiple ways. That yes, they get some work done for you, but two, if you keep them updated, a monthly email, they'll be like, oh, love what's doing, and they may say, hey, since you did that, you're now eligible for this decrease in this premium, or they say, hey, I need to introduce you to somebody, they're looking for somebody like that, and they can actually send you more business than what you're paying them, which is a beautiful scenario.
Absolutely. Okay, so bottom line is there is more than just the team that you employ within your business. There's also a support team around you, your banker, your accountant, your lawyer or solicitor, your tech person, and then your insurance broker. You need to find them and interview them in the same way as you would your team. So, and then you need to communicate with them and lead them in the same way as you would your team. And when you do that, then great things happen, because they'll not only ensure that your banking needs are looked after and your accounting is up to date, etc. They can also be trusted advisors, and they can also refer more people to your business, so they also become part of your sales team. That's pretty cool.
And then whenever they have like end of year parties and they can only invite 100 people, and you've kept them updated, you get to go to the company party, which is another amazing one to have happen.
Absolutely. So that concludes our conversation about team today. Daniel, is there any passing or last words that you'd like to mention?
No, just keep on trucking on, growing those businesses, generating that wealth, and building those relationships. Everybody deserves to be successful. Everybody deserves to build a phenomenal business. We're here to support you, and we just look forward to working with you.
Absolutely. So we do have some of these professionals, probably every one of them, in our community here. As you know, we're growing now close to 100 members in the SmartHub. If you want a referral to someone or an introduction, please reach out just via the comments, or a private message is perfect. Or if you yourself would like to come and be part of our community, or would like to chat to someone about what it means to be part of the SmartHub, please reach out. We do have a very engaging and welcoming community, and we are looking to grow that all the time. So we look forward to hearing from you, just a private message or even a comment, and we'll reach out to you. Well, we will see everybody again next Thursday at 1 o'clock. Hope you have a fabulous week.
See ya.
See you later.